Welcome to your 20-minute podcast with David Brower, where we do our best to give you useful information in 20 minutes or less. Now, here's your host, 5-time Voice Arts Awards nominee, David Brower.
Thanks, Alan. This is David Brower with our special guest from a small town just outside Heidelberg, Germany. It's Milon Gupta, and he's a business strategy coach and consultant, and he's also a chess master. And he brings that experience in chess to the business world. Milon, welcome to the show. Glad you're here.
Hello, David. I'm honored to be on your show.
So tell me about, I know you do business strategy coaching for executives, medium-sized, large companies, because they're challenged with a lot of strategic issues from digital and global and markets and compliance and you name it. And you're able to help these folks in a unique and exciting way, correct?
That is correct. I don't want to give the impression like I have all the answers. I rather enable them to find the answers themselves through the magical tool of strategic thinking, and that's also the name of my business. And as you indicated earlier, the source of my strategic thinking approach is indeed chess. And I woke up one morning about 10 years ago, and after playing chess for about 40 years and being in management for 20 years, I suddenly brought these things together. And I wondered, if I'm sitting at the chessboard, I'm making a lot of strategic decisions, and in management, I'm doing lots of decisions. And then I got curious, how could I transfer my insights from chess to the business world? And that was quite an exciting path, which took me quite some time to figure things out. Then I ended up with my approach that is based on 7 success principles of chess masters that I distilled from the observation of my own play. I'm a, let's say, moderate chess master, not too bad, but also not on the top level in the world.
Gotcha.
But I also had access to many tournaments and top grandmasters in the world, and I even played against a few of really very strong grandmasters, and that helped me really distill these insights that I put in a book, which unfortunately is only available in German so far.
Well, it's fascinating the way you came to this, and I used to play chess as a kid. That's about as far as I got. But I do understand the strategic thinking part. My father taught me that as a young kid, and I didn't realize that he was teaching me that, but he surely did. And so I understand just a microcosm of what you're talking about as far as making chess transferable, if you will, strategic thinking-wise, into business. And so it took you quite a while. I mean, you played chess for 40 years and in business for 20 years. How long did it take you to take that strategic thinking of chess and come into your 7 steps, if you will, of helping businesses?
I mean, that was an iterative process. I mean, after I had this sort of epiphany that I should bring this together, it wasn't like it all fell into place. It was rather a matter of then figuring out what can be transferred and what cannot be. I mean, there have been a few books on this beforehand, but they had I would say, a rather crude approach where they took some very simple principles and thought they could translate actions on the chessboard one-to-one to the business world.
Oh, wow.
And that doesn't work, and that's what I figured out. So what you can transfer is on a higher level of abstraction some principles, because if you compare these two worlds, there are similarities and there are differences. So I call both dynamic complex systems. So you would think if you just look at the 64 squares of a chessboard, how can anything happening on these 64 squares be complex and dynamic? But once you sit down on the chessboard with your 16 chessmen and the other guy also has 16, then you figure out once you have made a few moves that it's getting incredibly complex, and compared to business, it's still simple. But what chess makes it ideal for transferring ideas about strategic thinking is that it's such a limited microcosmos. So you can study the principles of how to make good decisions in a very closed and controlled environment.
Mm-hmm.
And you can call it a sort of experiment in which every day thousands of people are participating. And this has been going on for 1,500 years. So you could call it the biggest intellectual experiment in mankind. And,
no kidding. Wow.
Yeah, it's amazing if you think about it. But so far, mostly companies had used it for advertising because, of course, chess, the game of kings, always had a good image, but they were basically just using the image and not the essence of chess. And I thought that's a huge waste. Why not, in addition to the advertising, also use the essence of chess and learn from it, even if you cannot transfer it directly one-to-one, but you can learn something from the principles of chess.
So they're using it as a marketing tool and missing the entire essence or opportunity, really, of using the strategic thinking of chess to help their business improve. They're just scratching the surface by just paying attention to marketing, really not even knowing enough to ask the right questions, I would assume.
Exactly. Many of them, but there are exceptions, and these guys are incredibly successful.
Mm-hmm.
Think of star investor Peter Thiel, who also came from Germany once, and he, with his Facebook investments, he became a billionaire, and he, in his youth, was a emerging chess master. He stopped playing chess competitively at some point in time when he got busy with his business, but
sure.
He said repeatedly that he owes a lot to chess in terms of learning how to think strategically and think about the consequences of his actions and develop foresight. And looking at his investments, that's amazing. Of course, there's a luck factor, but chess masters also cannot figure it out from move one to the end of the game. That's not how it works.
Exactly.
But they do know what they're doing and what risks they're taking, and the same with an investor like Peter Thiel.
Well, and they're able also, if I remember back to my youth, they also have the ability to plan ahead, right? I mean, you're not just looking at the next move. As in business, you're looking at the second, third, and fourth possible move to improve your game or improve your business. So the thought process similarity is fascinating to me.
Yes, exactly. Just as you say, chess masters are able to calculate a couple of moves ahead. Mm-hmm. But the fascinating thing is that even amateurs are also able to think a couple of moves ahead, but in many cases, unfortunately, not the right few moves that they think ahead. And that makes the big difference. Now, you might ask, why is a chess master able to anticipate the right next 2, 3, 4, or 5 moves, including the responses by his opponent? Mm-hmm. Because you're not alone at the chessboard, like you're not alone in the marketplace.
Correct.
So you have to anticipate what the competition and regulators and all the other players on the field are doing, and that makes it so incredibly complex. And this is where some of the principles take place that I discovered. And one key principle is that you have to develop thinking patterns that are sort of chunks of certain constellations that you just recognize. So you have a judgment, an evaluation of certain positions in chess and certain mm-hmm. situations in business stored in your brain, and you know what patterns, what positions are desirable and what are not. And that helps you develop the steps towards achieving those positions that are desirable and those that are not. And the more you have, the better you are able, like vocabulary in the language, mm-hmm. to really use that to manipulate the action on the chessboard in your favor. And some people say that really top chess grandmasters have a sort of chess pattern vocabulary of 200,000 to 300,000 chess positions
Wow.
that are stored in their brain and that they can use and transfer and, of course, manipulate in their brain to find the right path towards a good position.
So when you're in business, you don't, I would assume, correct me if I'm wrong, but if you're in business, you want to learn more about strategic thinking and how that can help your business be more successful, more efficient, all those different kinds of things. You don't have to be a chess master. I wouldn't think you even have to, maybe you have to know just the very basics of chess. But you tell me, how much knowledge of chess does someone need to know to work with you on strategic thinking?
Absolutely zero. So
That's what I thought, yeah.
I mean, the coaching sessions with me don't run like we're first sitting together at the chessboard and I explain things with the moves, because,
Yeah.
as I said, I abstracted the principles and I'm not literally translating a chess move into an action in management. That would be crazy because,
Yeah.
as I explained, the complexity and the type of game you're playing is totally different. So we're
Right.
talking about totally different games, but so zero requirement in terms of knowing the game of chess. So
Good.
all that is required to work with me would be a certain openness and the readiness to develop those patterns. And I don't want to say it's the only path towards developing strategic thinking. I mean, there are other paths. It's just one path that is fact-based and where you have a lot of science and a lot of practical experience from the last 1,500 years of playing chess in the world as a background, which I don't know any other approach towards strategic thinking that is built on 1,500 years of practical experience.
Could not agree more. I was looking at your book on Amazon, and yes, it is only in German, but I had it translated because I was curious to read about it in my own brain, and it's the 7 principles of success of the chess master: strategic thinking and decisions for leaders. What leaders can learn from the chess game and the chess master's secret of success is conveyed by this inspiring book. Knowledge of the royal game is not a mandatory requirement, as you said, to use essential thinking and decision-making methods. But the background information, key topics, all those kinds of things are a part of your book. So let's talk about the seven principles of success that are a part of your approach.
Yeah, sure. So the first one that is very generic. It's not specific to chess, but I see it as the basis of success in any endeavor. It may not sound as very original, but nonetheless, it is very important. That is simply developing and having willpower. So if you look at all the people who are successful in anything, first you have to have willpower. You also need to have the willpower to develop, for example, all the knowledge about these patterns. If you are not motivated and don't have the grit to pull this through, you will never make it towards a chess master. So it takes a lot of patience and a strong will to get there. So all the other 6 principles are based on willpower. And if you look at the very strong chess masters of today, starting from world champion Magnus Carlsen from Norway, then you see that the difference between them is between being the world champion and being very close to it is the willpower. I mean, this fellow from Norway, he's really playing on positions that many other grandmasters would consider as a draw, and he keeps on playing, although
Wow.
objectively the position might be totally equal, but then he really overplays the opponent, and he has a lot of stamina and a lot of willpower and confidence, and then he's still winning. And he has won an incredible number of games like that, where he's just pulling through, sitting 6-7 hours at the chessboard until his will has overcome the will of the other guy.
Well, and that's what the business, that's the key to any business, I would think, is patience, quest for knowledge, commitment, willing to take risks, outlast the other guy, if you will. I mean, there's so many similarities to that. It makes all the sense in the world. So that's what a wonderful comparison. What about the remaining 5 steps?
Yeah. As I said, so willpower is the basis. It's totally important. Without that, you don't get anywhere.
You bet.
But then I mentioned already the thinking patterns. And now you might ask, how do you develop any thinking patterns, and especially the right thinking patterns? And that is a little bit of trial and error, and something called in psychology deliberate practice. And that unfortunately is missing a lot in business today once you have left university. If you think about how businesses run, then you make a business decision, you execute it, then it goes right or wrong. And even if it has gone wrong, you usually don't have a lot of honest, objective analysis like any chess master would do after a game, whether he has won or lost. So a chess master would always analyze this game thoroughly. Today, also with the help of very strong computer programs. But even in the past, they analyzed like mad for hours. I mean, the analysis after a game can be as long as the game itself, because they really want to get to the bottom of it and understand what went wrong, what went right, and what can they do better next time.
And that's the process of any business needs to take that exact process, that exact train of thought.
Exactly. And I mean, business has become very fast nowadays, so there's a lot of pressure, and many executives feel like they don't have the time for a thorough analysis. And if you think of bigger organizations, then it's not always the pursuit of finding the objective answers to what went wrong. It's then quite often rather a blame game. It wasn't my department, it wasn't me, it was the other department that screwed up, and that's not helpful. So
not
you can only succeed if you all try to together search for the truth, like a chess master. Chess masters, after game, they sit together in a friendly way, or sometimes not so friendly, but usually they still analyze games together. So you even analyze with your opponent, and you get the different views. Of course, in business, you wouldn't really usually analyze certain business situations with your fiercest competitors.
Right.
But
we've only got a couple of minutes left, so I want to make sure people can reach out to you. And one of the things that I'm thinking about that you just said is, you wouldn't be able to 99% of the time reach out to a competitor and compare notes, but if you have built a good team, if you have a team that is on the same page with you, is motivated, committed, has the willpower as you, and you can analyze in group what everybody liked, what people didn't like, what could we do differently. I mean, you have to have some kind of a mirror to help that assumed failure be modified to have an opportunity to be successful, right?
Absolutely. The search for truth of your actions and the results of your actions is paramount for success in chess, but also in business. And that is quite often neglected in business. So far, we have only covered 2 of the 7 success principles. So my offer to your listeners would be that I could send them a short article on the 7 success principles, which would also cover the other 5 if they just send me an email to info@strategicthinking.eu.
Sounds perfect. Sounds absolutely perfect. Milon Gupta, just outside of Heidelberg. And again, it is strategic thinking, coaching for executives. And that the website is strategicthinking.eu. And you can get all the information on there that we talked about, plus, obviously, a lot more. You can subscribe to his blog. There are countless numbers of blogs on there on decision-making, resilience, risk management, startups, business plans, even 11 blogs on chess. So be sure to check it out, strategicthinking.eu, and check out and contact Milon Gupta. Milon, thank you so much. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you very much, David. It has been a pleasure to be on your show.
Listen to Your 20-Minute Podcast with David Brower on the go. Downloads are available on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, any podcast app, and on our website at davidbrowervo.com/Your 20-Minute Podcast. Until next time, thank you for listening.